Hello and welcome to Wildlife Photographer of the Year 2020, coming to you virtually from the Natural History Museum here in London. It will be a fantastic evening, and for many of the photographers who've entered this competition, it might become the pinnacle of their career. It's held in great esteem. It's a prestigious honour to win any prize in this competition. But winning a prize this year may be slightly different, as our presentation is this evening, because COVID-19, that pandemic, has swept across the planet with tragic consequences, changing our lives and our livelihoods, influencing the lives of all of our photographers, of course, who under normal circumstances would be able to travel around the world, but not this year, not in 2020. And it would have also had implications for all of those conservationists, all of those environmentalists out there working to keep our planet safe and secure. And we'll be learning a lot more about that later on in our programme. But look at this. This is the place to be this evening. This beautiful building, this hallowed shrine to zoology. I absolutely love the Natural History Museum here in London, its architecture, but also because it's a great repository of knowledge. Yes, it's got 80 million specimens, but behind the closed doors here, it's got 300 scientists, specialists in their field, constantly learning more about the natural world, which can allow us to make better informed decisions when it comes to natural history. So as I said, a great evening, and also in some ways this evening, we want to offer you a visual anecdote to some of the trouble and strife that we're facing outside. So do settle down, as Megan said earlier, with your wine, with your tea, with your crisp, with your cake, and just sit back on your sofas and enjoy the photographs that we're going to show you. Thankfully, it's not just me this evening. Megan will be joining me. She's a young zoologist, TV presenter, conservationist, environmentalist and photographer herself. And she'll be joined by a whole range of different guests, scientists, photographers, people from here in the museum, and essentially, of course, some of the judges. Because tonight, as we go through the photographs, I'm sure you'll all have your own opinions about which one should be the winning picture. But that's what we're about this evening, announcing those winning pictures. But before we get started, I'd like to hand over to the Executive Director of Engagement here at the Natural History Museum, Clare Matterson.
I'm thrilled to welcome everyone to our very first virtual awards. 2020 has been a hard year for all of us, dominated by natural disasters from wildfires and floodwaters affecting home and livelihoods, and facing a pandemic with zoonotic origins. And yet, perhaps spurred by these events, this is also the year we sought refuge in nature and solace in our green spaces. This is the year that we're waking up to the power of the natural world. For over 50 years, Wildlife Photographer of the Year has documented the decimation of environments and simultaneously landed emotional punch after emotional punch with its beauty and its fragility. And this year is no different. It is impossible not to be moved by these emotionally charged images, from heart-twisting empathy for a performing polar bear to the electrifying leap of an ibex crossing a deathly crevasse. It is our privilege to run Wildlife Photographer of the Year, a galvanising force of nature, for nature. Our exhibition here in South Kensington is generously supported by our long-term sponsor, the renewable energy company Ørsted, and we're delighted to welcome camera manufacturer Leica Camera this year as an associate sponsor. I must also thank the jury of esteemed photographers, conservationists and scientists who had the Herculean task of whittling down almost 50,000 photos to these finalists. Michael Orr, Shekhar Dattari, Tim Littlewood, Susan McElhenney, Haimi Rojo, and all expertly chaired by Rosamund Kidman-Cox. Combined, the images they selected provide a vivid portrait of the ecosystems that our 300 scientists study. Our groundbreaking research tackles the challenges that we as a species create and now need to reckon with, from plastics clogging our oceans to drought and disease outbreak. Reaching out to audiences across the globe, at the Natural History Museum, we weave science and storytelling throughout our exhibitions and our events, such as the Wildlife Photographer of the Year, to create advocates for the planet. And I make no apology also to say that we need your help to continue to do this. When we closed our doors for nearly 5 months, we did not stop engaging with the public about the natural world. We reached out digitally, gaining new and bigger audiences. Yet because of the pandemic, we've lost vital income. If you could take a moment to donate, no matter the size, you would help us to continue to welcome visitors on-site and online and play our part in tackling the planetary emergency. Thank you. And now, back to Chris to reveal the gifted young photographers who have translated their passion for nature into exquisite and arresting images.
Thank you, Claire. And before we move on to those arresting images, I'd like to reinforce that plea for support for the museum. I've been coming here since I was that tall, standing in this hall beneath initially a diplodocus and now a giant blue whale. I've wandered these halls, and here I've been inspired. It's this that's formulated the foundation of my keen interest in zoology. This place has been a repository of knowledge and a passion that propels that knowledge through younger people for tens, if not hundreds of years. So please give generously if you can. Anyway, plea over. Now let's get on with the photography. And we're going to start with the Young Wildlife Photographer of the Year 2020. And we're going to start with the 15 to 17-year-old age group. Now, when we run through each category, what we're going to do is show you all the awarded photographs before we announce the winners. That way we get to see a selection of all of those, and you get to see a range of them too, perhaps deciding if the winning picture is your favourite too. But as I say, we're starting Young Wildlife Photographer of the Year 2020, 15 to 17-year-old. So let's take a look at that first batch of awarded images that we've got. Spoon-billed sandpiper, what a way to start. An extraordinary bird with an extraordinary appendage. Just look at that bill, beautiful photograph. Here, a moose veiled in snow. An artistic composition here, fantastic stuff. And here, a fox munching on a barnacle goose down there, hidden in the rocks. And lastly, a brown bear surrounded by a circle of silvery spume, and in its jaws, a silvery salmon in that soft light. Now, come on. That was a pretty good start, wasn't it, from the 15 to 17-year-olds? But we have to choose a winner. And I can tell you that the winner in the 15 to 17-year-old category of Young Wildlife Photographer of the Year 2020, our first award, is the fox that got the goose. And it was photographed by Leena Heikkinen in Finland. Leena was on holiday in Helsinki in July, and she found a family of foxes with 6 cubs, and she was watching them all day long until 7 o'clock when the vixen brought in this barnacle goose. Now, there was typically, as there would be with a group of young foxes, a bit of a scrap there, and this one managed to secrete the goose under the bushes. And look at the snarling on its face here as it's trying to keep its siblings away from that most welcome meal. There's a sense of drama, a sense of urgency, and of course, it's beautifully composed in amongst the rocks there. I like red foxes very much. Clearly, Leena does too. And because we're a virtual awards ceremony tonight, none of the photographers will be visiting us at the museum, but that's not going to stop us seeing what they have to say, because we've got some video clips of them, and we're going to go firstly to Leena in Finland to tell us about how pleased she is to have won this award.
Hello everybody, I'm super grateful for this award. I would like to thank my wonderful family for always supporting me, especially my parents who have helped and encouraged me. I would also like to thank the main character of this photo, the fox. And one more thing I want to say is that adults save our planet.
What a great message to start the evening. Adults save our planet, because let's face it, Leena, as you're probably intimating, we haven't been doing too good a job up until now, but we're working hard, at least some of us, to try and make amends. Let's move on to our next Young Photographers category now. It's the 11 to 14-year-old category, and once again, we're going to take a look at all the awarded images before we see the winner. So what have we got in this category? A pair of puffins, beautiful crisp detail. Look at the feathering on top of their heads and all of the detail you can see in their very characteristic bills. Perhaps the best dressed primate in the world. Yes, this Duke up a tree, a Duke langus, looking very resplendent there with his red trousers peeping through the branches. And this clownfish nestled in the anemone where they find, obviously, security and safety as the anemone provides them with some safety from any potential predators. 3 more exceptional images. Which one's going to be the winner? Well, I can tell you that the winner is A Mean Mouthful, a photograph by Sam Sloss from the USA, and it's this clownfish. He photographed it in Sulawesi in Indonesia, and he liked this particular fish because he noted that its mouth was open, and when he photographed it and got it home, and he was processing it, he noticed that inside the mouth here, and if you look very carefully there, you can see a pair of eyes. Because the fish is not alone. It's got a tongue-eating louse inside its mouth. And these parasites sneak in through the fish's gills as a male, transform themselves into a female, grow some legs, attach themselves to the back of the tongue where they start sucking the blood. The tongue withers, and then the tongue-eating louse replaces the tongue in the mouth of the fish and continues to eat the food that it's eating. What an extraordinary story. What a great start to the evening. Not just a clownfish. We haven't only found Nemo, we found one of the most fascinating parasites in the natural world, all thanks to Sam Sloss. Let's hear from Sam now.
This is so exciting. I want to thank the Museum of Natural History and Wildlife Photographer of the Year's jury for choosing my image. It's such an honor. I also want to thank Simon and Z. Buxton, the owners of Nadland Bay Resort in Sulawesi, for always treating me like family for the past 4 years, and all their awesome staff and fantastic dive guides too. I also want to thank the Underwater Tribe and give a huge shout out to my dad, who taught me all I know about photography, and my mom for being the best dive buddy I could ever wish for. Thanks again, have a great night.
Huge shout out for his dad there, and dads and mums, parents and guardians across the world. I think they all deserve a huge shout out. Our young photographers, if they're anything like me and like Megan, we're very dependent on our parents when it came to first pushing those buttons on the right subject. Fantastic stuff, Sam. Love that louse, by the way. I'm not going to get over that for some time, but I'll have to because we've got to move on to the next category, which is 10 years and under. So let's look at the awarded photographs in 10 years and under this year. Stonechat, common passerine in Europe and parts of northern Africa. This is a male, a very striking little bird there in the meadow. Here, a badger, typically a nocturnal animal, but moving across the grass in the sunset with its very fluffy coat there. A little tern, backlit, screaming for food, out in the open and vulnerable, we might think about that. A chamois peeping. Wildlife photography loves a peeping animal. Peeping round trees and over the tops of the cliff always score points. And then this urban spider. And interesting, if you look here, you can see these are called stablementa. There are 4 of them here. And these zigzags on the webs. We're not entirely sure what they're for. Perhaps some specialist up here might have a better idea than me. We think they might be there to stop larger animals flying into the webs and damaging them. Things like birds, for instance. But quite a few species around the world make these stablementums inside their webs. There's always more to learn about the natural world. One of the ways we learn about it is when people capture it in photographs. Some excellent images there, but one of them's got to win. Which one is it? Well, I can tell you that the winner in the 10 years and under category this year is Perfect Balance by Andrés Domínguez Blanco from Spain. And it's this stonechat picture. I love this. It's an impressionist dream, isn't it? Look at the soft, muted colours here, worthy of Monet or Manet in the bottom, perfectly poised on this plant stem, bending into the picture, facing the right direction. And here with the out of focus bush in the background, it's a triumph of composition. It's a very, very beautiful photograph indeed, and a worthy winner. So why don't we hear from Andrés over in Spain as he accepts this award.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have no word to show me happiness. It is a very special day for me. Winning this category is very important to me. Thanks on your work and for the preservation of the environment. I dedicate the award to my parents for their support. Bye!
Superb. Thank you, Andrés. That's absolutely brilliant. Megs, what about that photograph? I mean, they are, for us, pretty much an everyday bird, but it's been transformed here by the skill of that young photographer into what is a very, very beautiful picture.
It really has. Andreas has looked at a stone chat in a new way and has composed it absolutely beautifully. As Chris said, he's got the beautiful colours there, but I like how the colours are perfectly balanced between the colour of the stone chat and how all the lines kind of drive your eye right to where it really matters. But right now, I'm joined by one of my expert panellists, Sam Hobson. Hello. I've got a few questions come in from the audience, a little bit about photography, because you're a fantastic wildlife photographer yourself.
Thank you.
You've entered in the competition a few times and done very, very well. So I wanted to go through a couple questions. So this was sent in to us from Jasmine, age 10, saying, how much of taking a winning photo is down to luck?
There is, well, obviously there's an element of luck because you never know what an animal is going to do, but there's that sort of, you make your own luck, you know, so the harder I work, the luckier I get sort of thing. So, you know, the more time you put in the field, the more likely you're going to have that encounter. And that's the thing. It's like, yes, there's always an element of luck, but it's more than that. You know, you get to know your subject, you get to know your kit. When that magical moment happens, you're ready, you're there, and you can take it. So it's a combination.
You've got to put yourself in that position to get that luck.
Yeah, and the more time you spend with wildlife, the more you see, and the more you're ready to capture that image when that lucky moment happens. So, yeah.
One more question very quickly. Jason, aged 8, which camera captures animals at night best?
That is a tricky one because there are so many good cameras these days. I suppose anything with a good high ISO capabilities you're looking for, but don't get hung up on that. You can use an iPhone, you can use light, you know, you can use a flash. So, you know, and in the city especially, there's street lights. So, you know, any camera will do a good picture at night. So.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Sam. Lots of options there. And is it down to luck? I mean, Chris, what do you think? Has luck got anything to do with it?
Never. Don't believe in luck, Megs. You make your own luck, and generally it's through a lot of hard work. Good research and then hard work, trial and error, always putting the animal's welfare first, of course. That's key to making yourself into a good wildlife photographer. But now we're going to see who's going to be crowned Young Wildlife Photographer of the Year 2020. It's going to be one of the 3 that we've seen already this evening. So on the list, we've got The Fox That Got the Goose, Lena Häkkinen's photograph of this red fox pawing over its barnacle goose prey brought by the vixen. Next one, A Mean Mouthful, Sam Sloss. It's the clownfish in the anemone, but with that lurking louse. And then lastly, the one that we've just looked at, the very beautiful Perfect Balance, Andreas Dominguez Blanco from Spain, with this picture of a stone chat in the meadow. Now, all 3 of our young winners are on Zoom at the moment. I'm afraid to say that only one of them can win in this competition. And this year, after much deliberation, the judges have decided that Young Wildlife Photographer of the Year 2020 is Lena Häkkinen for her picture of the goose that was taken by the fox. There we are.
Hello.
Lena, how do you feel? You've just won the competition.
It feels amazing.
That's a tremendous achievement. Have you won any other previous competitions?
Yeah. Yes, of course I have.
But this is the big one,
amazing.
surely. But this is the big one, surely, isn't it, really? Because many young photographers that have won the award that you just have gone on to take a lifelong series of photographs and win categories in the adult competition in years to come. Is it your ambition to keep taking photos?
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. Lena, congratulations from everyone here, from all of the judges. It's an exceptional photograph. Do keep up your work, and we hope to see you again winning more competitions, or parts of this competition at some stage in the future. Top work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lena. What about that, Megs? Our first award winner with a super picture. You know what it's like when you're young? Well, you're still young. Taking a photograph like that is tremendously exciting, but to cap it off with an award is even better.
Oh, it's so exciting, and the young categories in these types of competitions always really excite me because I think young people really push the boundaries. They don't conflict themselves to the rules and regulations that often adults do. They just barge straight through and they get some of the best outcomes, as we've seen here. So massive congratulations to Lena, and we have this incredible award which is on its way over to you. It will be with you very soon, so a massive congratulations. And one of my favourite things, of course, is hearing about the stories behind the photographs themselves and hearing from the photographers. So now we're going to hear from Aishwarya to talk a little bit about her experiences in wildlife photography.
I'm Aishwarya Sridhar. I'm a wildlife photographer and storyteller from the incredible land of India. I live in Mumbai and I've been doing wildlife photography for the last 7 years now. I love to explore the untamed places, the wild places in India. It's been an enriching journey so far. Photography is an art form that lives across borders and beyond barriers. It's an emotive art form that helps highlight global issues, and photographs can create talking points globally. Photography allows you to address inequality and unrepresented groups. Nature doesn't discriminate on the basis of race, religion, caste, gender, and in wildlife photography, the person standing behind the camera doesn't make any difference. It's irrelevant to Mother Nature. What actually matters is how well you can frame the beauty of nature in front of you, how well you can frame the beauty of nature in your camera. Wherever you happen to be in this world, whatever your background and whoever you are, it doesn't matter. Photography knows no boundaries, no barriers. So just pick up your camera and go out there and explore nature.
Photography knows no boundaries or barriers. Whoever you are, wherever you are in the world, you can take photographs. And if you work at it, you can take great photographs. And that's what we're going to see now. We're moving on to the adult categories. There are 14 of them. So this is your last chance to get the dog up on the sofa, to top up your wine glass, reach for the chocolates, because from here on in, it's a roller coaster of fantastic photography. And we're going to start off with, well, I say adult. These are perhaps semi-adult. I hope I'm not being insulting, because it's opened this category to people between 18 and 26. And I've got to say, when I was 26, I was semi-adult. I'm 59, I've probably just about got to adult status now, to be honest with you. Well, Megs might argue about that on some occasions. Anyway, we're going to start with the Rising Star portfolio. And this year, I can tell you immediately that the winner of our Rising Star portfolio comes from Italy, and his name is Alberto Fantoni. Let's look at his photographs. Fabulous image of ibex fighting here. European beaters, again aggressive encounter, one snatching the other bird's wing. Mute swans, a very dynamic image with cascading diagonals across that, plenty of spume there as a larger bird attacks a smaller one. And here, look, a fieldfare tugging for all of its might at that earthworm, pulling it from the meadow. Great crested grebe with an arc of spume as it thwacks that fish onto the water. Very large fish, I have to say. And then lastly, this Eleanor's falcon, one of the most beautiful birds in the world, without any argument whatsoever, provisioning its young here with a bird that it snatched from the sky whilst it was trying to migrate back to Africa. A stunning series of pictures, and always difficult in these portfolio categories. Photographers can't just enter one striking image, they've got to enter a sequence of them. So it's top work to Alberto, and we can join him now in Italy.
Buonasera a tutti, volevo ringraziarvi e ringraziare soprattutto la giuria che ha compreso il messaggio che sta alla base del mio portfolio, ovvero quello di godere della natura che ci circonda poco fuori casa senza dover andare troppo lontano, comprendere come naturalmente gli animali e i paesaggi che ci circondano sono degni del nostro più grande interesse, non solo fotografico ma soprattutto naturalistico. Ringrazio inoltre la giuria di avermi dato la possibilità comunque di tornare a far parte della grande famiglia del wildlife e di poter seguire le orme di mio padre, che già tanti anni fa aveva ricevuto più di un premio all'interno di questa bellissima competizione che rimane la più importante al mondo. Dedico comunque questa mia vittoria a mio nonno e nuovamente a mio padre, poiché sono le persone che mi hanno educato, mi hanno insegnato e mi hanno sempre di più appassionato a questo genere fotografico, che secondo me rimane il più bello da perseguire, poiché ci permette di confrontarci con la natura, che è il mondo dal quale noi arriviamo. Grazie mille.
Congratulations, Alberto, a great series of photos, but the judges had to pick one of them so that it could be put forward for the grand title, the overall winner, Wildlife Photographer of the Year. And the image they chose from those that you entered was this one, of the Eleanor's falcon. Fantastic birds. They breed very late in the year in the Mediterranean, so that when they're young in the nest, they can catch all of those young migrants, the smaller passerine birds that are moving from northern Europe across the Mediterranean back into Africa. And here's something really neat about these birds. Do you know what they do? They're pretty mean. Sometimes they catch the young birds and they don't kill them like most raptors would immediately, but they leave them alive and they wedge them into crevices in the rock so that they stay fresh for their young if they can't catch any more that quickly. So they store their food. They have a living larder. What about that? A living larder, and a great photo as well. Let's move on to our next category, and it's the first of our behaviour categories that we have this evening, and it's invertebrates. And I've got to say, over the years in Wildlife Photographer, we've seen some sensational pictures of the animals without backbones. So let's take a look at the award winners in this year's category. An ant, but not just an ant. Look what's rising from the sand under its abdomen, the head of an ant lion. A neuropteran predator. And look at this, it's a bat fly. Some might see it as grotesque, I see it as fascinating, clamped there to the head of a bat in Mozambique. A duo of wasps, different species of course, both returning to their nest in a sandy bank. Very, very beautiful. And here, ants are tending a flower bug, a flower hopper. And in fact, they're not antagonising this with a view to killing it, they're stimulating it to release sugars from its backside here so that they can feast upon those sugars. A spider munching on glass frog eggs. Who'd have thought that, a spider eating frog's eggs? And lastly, this remarkable image of fireflies. Well, I say flies, they're not dipterans, they're coleopterans, they're beetles. And this is an exceptional photograph. And also a bit of technical wizardry was required here, because this is a number of photographs which have been taken and then layered back together. Because although those fireflies seem very bright to our eyes when we're out on an evening like that, to the camera they're difficult to represent. So this is a piece of technical wizardry as well. But which one of those photographs is going to take the prize in this year's Behaviour Invertebrates category? There's some absolutely brilliant photographs there, but the judges decided that the winner was two wasps by Frank Deschendol from France. Look at this photograph. Now, I'm going to be a little bit biased here because these are two of my favourite species, I have to say. This is a sand lover wasp, and it goes out and catches caterpillars, which it stuffs into holes in the bank, lays an egg on them as the larvae will feed on that meat. So it's a parasitic wasp. But this is a hyperparasite. This is a cuckoo wasp. This one doesn't catch its own caterpillars and stick them in holes. It goes into another species of wasp nest, not the sand lover here, but another one, lays its egg in there on the caterpillar, where the other parasitic wasp has already laid its egg. But what's the first thing the cuckoo wasp eats when it hatches? Yes, the other parasite's egg. And then it slowly devours the caterpillar, the non-essential organs first, so it stays alive for as long as possible. Come on, they're brilliant. And this is a brilliant photograph because Frank has captured these two animals pin sharp, and he's done that by developing his own technology. Using an old hard drive, yes, he built an infrared beam that went across in front of the holes, and then a special high-speed shutter to capture it. Hats off to Frank. Let's hear from him now in France.
Good evening to all. Wow, I'm extremely happy. It is a huge reward for me. Of course, I thank everyone who helped me, especially my father who managed to send my photos before the deadline while I was traveling in Sri Lanka. And thanks to you in London for having been able to bounce back and organize this ceremony online. despite the difficult times. I also greet all the wildlife photographers with whom I share this amazing passion. See you soon.
We hope so, Frank. We hope to see more of your work. It's an exceptional picture. Got to apologise for getting a bit carried away there. I really, really do like those wasps. They've got an extraordinary life history, and that was an exceptional photograph. Let's move on to our next category now, which is behaviour mammals. And I've got to say, this is one of the most fiercely fought of all of the categories in the competition. And this year is no exception. We've got some super photos. Let's look at the awarded images now. Couple of Ural owls in Japan, and the squirrel beating a hasty retreat here because these birds will eat red squirrels. I think it got a bit of a shock when it climbed up that branch. And here a Nubian ibex in Israel leaping over that crevasse. The photographers told us that the adults walked around, but the youngsters couldn't resist showing off. A leopard having snatched a young warthog after the rains, but look what's happening. The adult female warthog behind has every intention of trying to rescue its youngster. And here, an extraordinary photograph. These are Pallas's cat, an incredibly rare and shy species that lives on the Tibetan plateau. Much closer to home, red foxes, this one with a large brown rat. Quite a formidable prey item for a red fox, I have to say. I think there's going to be a scrap about that. And the last photograph here is this Himalayan wolf chasing this Tibetan antelope. And you can see that picture is telling a story. And whether you think it's got a happy ending or not depends whether you're a fan of the wolf or the antelope. But which one of these pictures is going to be crowned the winner of Behaviour Mammals 2020? Well, the judges deliberated and they decided that When Mother Says Run is the winner. Shangye Li from China with his photograph of these Pallas's cats. Now, this was taken on the Qinghai Tibetan Plateau, and these animals are very difficult to photograph, normally only active between dusk and dawn, and they live at about 3,500 metres. He set up his hide close to their lair, which was in an old marmot den, and when the adult came out with these youngsters, he was able to watch them, but he waited for that moment when she sounded an alarm call. And what we're looking at here is all of these young cats in the process of beating a very hasty retreat to that den, as they think there may well be a fox in the area. So an extraordinarily rare animal, difficult to photograph, and a very beautiful photograph. Let's go to China to hear from Shangye about his award.
很高兴荣获此奖项，此时此刻心情非常激动，非常感谢主办方给我提供了向世界展示中国祁连山国家公园内野生动物真实生活场景的机会。 感谢中国政府持续加大对野生动物的保护力度，使得我们有机会见到它们和用镜头记录它们。感谢我的摄影师朋友们，感谢我的家人给我的支持和鼓励。谢谢大家。
Thank you, Shangye. What an amazing photograph. And Megs, did you know he spent 10 years up there as an amateur photographer on that Tibetan plateau, freezing cold. I quite fancy going myself. Don't know you, if you can bring the vegan sandwiches, I'll organise the ponies.
Well, Chris, if you'd like to do the driving, then I'm all for it, but I can promise you a good vegan sandwich. What an amazing image that is. I have to say, it's one of my absolute favourites. To get an insight into such an elusive species like this, but not just an insight, to get an insight into its family life is a whole other thing. I love this little individual just poking its head out like that, a little bit cheeky. Very good. Congratulations, absolutely fantastic. And joining me now, we have Richard Sabin, who is the curator of mammals at the Natural History Museum. A fantastic position, I'm sure. So what do you think of all these incredible mammal images that you've seen today?
It's a joy every year to see them. I mean, you know, we can't be in the field all the time. And the important thing that we have to say is that, you know, you're our eyes and ears on the ground. And every time we see images like this, it adds a little bit more to our knowledge about these species. You know, we are out there on their terms and keeping a very kind of respectable distance, but gathering this information that really enriches our knowledge about these animals.
What do these photos add to scientific research?
That's the key thing. I mean, you know, you can see types of behaviours that zoologists who spend years in the field may not observe directly. So these kind of opportunistic encounters with animals like this, really, really important to make sure that these photos get shared as broadly as possible with the scientific community. There could be a gem in there that we haven't spotted yet.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant, isn't it, to get that insight, something that we don't always see when we're out in the field.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Richard. Really appreciate that. There's lots of questions and comments coming in, lots of people saying how fascinating they're enjoying this evening, so that's brilliant to hear. Make sure you keep those questions coming in, Chris. How about that then, Chris?
Fantastic stuff with the mammals, there's no doubt about that. But then, look, I'm standing beneath the world's greatest mammal. Hope, the blue whale, is now hanging here from the ceiling, giving us an idea of perspective. The largest animal that's ever lived on the planet, with this beautiful symmetrical skeleton hanging up above me. Superb stuff. OK, let's move on with the photography to our next category. It's behaviour, and this time it's birds, equally ferociously fought as the mammals, I have to say, over the years, and we've got some cracking images here. Let's take a look at our awarded images. First up, we've got great crested grebes here, feeding the youngster a fish, the striped little youngster, on the back of that other bird where they rest after fledging. Short-toed eagle taking on a snake of some size here. This is a rat snake, looks as if it's about 1.5 meters long. That would be big for the short-toed eagle. And this one, the puffin, with its beak filled with krill. The question is, of course, when you get this puffin, it's easy enough to see how it catches the first krill, but how does it squeeze the last one in without dropping the first one? Well, it does have serrations running all the way down its bill to grip things like slippery fish and krill. And it also has a tongue with little barbs on it. But how they do that under the water with these things buzzing around, we really don't know yet. It's a great photo. OK, but we've got to pick a winner out of all of those. And again, after deliberation, I can tell you that the judges this year, 2020, Behaviour Birds, chose Great Crested Sunrise. Jose Luis Jimenez from Spain took this photograph in the west of Spain from his floating hide. He'd been in the water for a long time. He had his lens floating on a platform, covered over, of course, and what he noted, as we've all seen, is that when these birds fledge, the young rest on the backs of both of the adults, and they will pop their heads out to be fed fish. He's only been taking photographs since 2014, Jose, but he's done very well with this one, and let's hope that he sounds very happy and pleased with himself over in Spain. Jose.
Hello from Spain. It's a shame that we are not all together because of the current COVID situation. Congratulations to all the winners. It's an honor for me to be part of them. I would like to thank the jury for this award and everyone involved in organizing this event. I would also like to thank all the people who have been contacting me in the last week. I am grateful and happy that through this winning photograph I have been able to show this kind of animal behavior in nature. Thank you very much, and please keep safe.
Thank you, Jose. A fabulous photograph of those grebes. There he is there, look. It's the old man of the museum, Charles Darwin, keeping watch over all of us, making sure we're staying focused, not on the origin of our species at this point, but keeping our species and all of those others on the planet alive. Top bloke, Darwin, top bloke. You know, this year has been an exceptional year. I mentioned at the outset that our photographers couldn't travel in many instances, and this has meant that they've had to turn their lenses onto subjects much closer to home, the wildlife that they share their communities with. And here in the UK, we've seen plenty of that. I've been out in my garden taking photographs. Other photographers I know, Andy Rouse, Paul Goldstein, typically men who would be travelling to India, Africa, Antarctica. They've been down the park, jumping over their back fence as well. But one person that's always been focused on the animals that live in his community is Matt Moran, and he's been making beautiful films and taking exceptional photographs of the foxes that he shares his space with.
My name's Matt Moran. I'm a wildlife photographer. I've been highly commended in the Lumix People's Choice Award 2 years ago with my image Fox Meets Fox. And this year I'm thrilled to be awarded in the mammal behaviour category for my image The Rat Game. So most of my photography over the past 8 years has been close to home, and it's now really close to home with just a 10-minute walk up the road to my local allotment where I have a veg patch, growing veg there, but the real treat for me has been photographing a family of foxes over the last 4 years. So one of the biggest challenges for me photographing foxes is to do it differently. I always want to challenge myself technically, creatively, so I'm using a bunch of different lenses. A wide-angle lens, trying to get up close to take portraits of them. I've been using remote triggers, hiding my camera in the box. Then also at night, really trying to master flash. I love learning with my photography as well. It's one of the great challenges, and one of the things I really enjoy about doing it is learning a lot. So I've been using a twin flash setup, also with remote triggers, and just learning about how a fox will behave around flash, how to light them well, and that's something that's been a real reward for doing this project for me as well. And for me, a big part of this work is to educate people about foxes. There are so many myths out there, they get a lot of bad press, and I can understand sometimes they can be a nuisance, digging up your garden and nicking your shoes, but they also provide a really important service in the urban ecosystem, and they have every right to live here just as much as we do. What a treat it is to see this beautiful animal live amongst us in our back gardens, in our allotments, catching fleeting glimpses of them in the street. We should be celebrating the fox and really lucky and thankful that we've got them here. I would encourage anyone, especially at this time, to pick up a camera and explore your local green patch. You'll be amazed at what you can find, and you'll get rewarded. The more time you put in, the easier it is to get to these locations, the better it will be.
Thank you so much, Matt, for that inspiring film. All throughout lockdown, we've been disconnected from one another, seemingly disconnected from the environment, perhaps, but that couldn't be more wrong, because we've seen the extraordinary in the ordinary. We've re-examined things that we used to walk past every day, things that we didn't really give much notice to, but we stepped outside, we sat on our doorsteps, our patios, looked through our balconies, and found wonder in the everyday things, and we found new excitement in it. And that's what Matt has done so brilliantly there. And I've been following Matt throughout the course of lockdown. He's personally brought me so much joy to provide that insight into the foxes that live close by to his house in London. And it's just brought so much happiness to so many people, and it's such an extraordinary thing to do, to look a little bit closer to home for that wonder. And Chris, I know you've been doing the same too, but you've been doing it looking at your badgers.
I have, yeah. Unlike Matt with his foxes, I've been out to the badger set most nights, getting to know my badgers with a far greater, sort of passion than I have normally been able to muster. So it has been, in some ways, a sort of a bit of a treat this year to be locked up at home. It's brought me closer in contact with all of those animals that I haven't had time to look at since I was a teenager. There we are. Let's move on to our next behaviour, and in fact our last behaviour category this year. It's amphibians and reptiles. Amphibians and reptiles. Got a couple of cracking images here. Let's have a look at those that have been awarded this year. What about this one of a gharial, very rare reptile? Less than 1,000 left in the world, I think. 500 all in one reserve. And here a glass frog eating a spider. Called a glass frog because it has translucent skin, and from certain angles you can see through it. A couple of harlequin toads here, not looking the happiest toads in the world, but don't let the look on their face betray the thing. The fact they found a mate is going to be keeping them very happy indeed. And here another glass frog. Look at his amazing eyes as it stands guard over its spawn in the foreground here. It's beautiful pictures of these animals. Okay, so let's see who's won this category this year. Life in the Balance by Hintze Hall from Spain. And here it is, it's that glass frog. And this is a very rare species, only recently discovered, and already it's critically endangered. It's been recognised as that, and that's down to mining of gold and copper on these sites. Hintze was out in the jungle at night, a difficult environment to be working in, of course, pouring with rain. On his way back, he found this frog. Only the second time he'd actually found one eating. So he was holding his brolly in one hand and his camera in the other. And look, it's paid dividends. Let's join Hintze in Spain to see what he says about winning his award.
Hi, thank you so much for giving me this award. This is an adorable animal. It's a glass frog. And I hope that with this picture, the people just start to love the amphibians and start to spend much more attention of them, because we really needed to work very hard to save them from extinction. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Hermé. That was an amazing photograph. And let's hope that it draws attention to the plight of not just this small frog, but all of those other amphibians around the world we know are in desperate trouble through fungal diseases, loss of habitat, so on and so forth. Our amphibians really do need our help at this point in time. Now then, we're halfway through our categories, but we've come to a very special one now, one that I always enjoy looking at because I'm a terrestrial air-breathing mammal, and only infrequently do I dunk myself beneath the surface of water, salty or fresh. It's the underwater category, which always reveals some extraordinary organisms, and this year is no exception. Let's take a look at the awarded images. Look at this one with these lovely top shells in the foreground covered in algae, and that sharp shark there. Beautiful reflections. A speeding squid here, diamondback squid with that motion blur. Amazing photograph. And here, a great mess of grey reef sharks and all of these convict fish in the foreground. See there? They're not clouds. That was them spawning. Yes. And this one, another one of those diamondback squid, this time illuminated gold and perfectly symmetrical. An amalgam of invertebrate life. Tunicates, and in amongst them this magnificent jellyfish. Again, extraordinary organisms. And here, lastly, this little trevally fish hiding inside an anemone. You might think that would be the last place it would want to be because it would be stung, but it's actually hiding there to avoid predation. Super photograph, super photograph. Tough category, this one, to separate into a winner, but the judges have done so. And I have to tell you, they've said that the golden moment by Songda Kai from China is the winning image. Yes, it's this diamondback squid paralarva stage. Paralarva meaning it's between the larva and the sub-adult stage. But let's concentrate on the way it looks. Squid and cephalopods like this have small cells in their skin called chromatophores. And these they can open and close, drawing in pigment to change their coloration, sometimes their texture too. But this species has something more. It has iridophores. So not only can it fill its skin with pigment, it can also reflect and scatter the light. And at this point, Songda has looked down on it as it's transformed itself into this beautiful golden apparition. What a species, what a photograph. Let's hear from Songda in China.
It's a great honor that I have been selected as the Wildlife Photographer of the Year Underwater category winner. First of all, I would like to thank those people who helped me to get this photo. Being a free photographer has always become my dream, not only because I have so much passion on ocean and photo shooting. For the past decade, nature environment has been damaged, especially our ocean. Many animals are suffering. My photo work encountered ocean species. I was amazed by them, and though protect ocean environment cannot be waited. Thank you very much.
I read in my notes here that Songda is the director of the NOC Conservation Group in Shanghai, but also he frequently dives through the night, such as his passion. So he goes out, gets into the water at sunset, and he stays underwater all the way through the night doing his black water photography until the sun comes up. Now that is dedication. And a super picture, Megs, you've got to admit, an inspiration for alien life.
What an amazing image. Spend all of that time submerged in often challenging environments. To come out with an image like that, I mean, I absolutely adore it. The symmetry, I mean, it's just golden, it's sparkling, and it is a bit of a hint at extraterrestrial life. And now I'm joined by Miranda, who's a curator of crustacea here at the Natural History Museum, but also an expert in things like jellyfish. So you must be really happy seeing things like squid and jellyfish in this year's category.
Oh, massively. I mean, I absolutely Yeah. Love this image. I mean, what underwater photography does for often very small microscopical animals of marine invertebrates, it magnifies them. It kind of brings them even more to life. And what you can see are sometimes the details that are often lost in terms of the collections that I examine. You know, it picks up all of the finer details within the body. Also, on this image in particular, the chromatophores, so the ink-filled sacs just underneath the skin as well that, you know, come to life. And lots of what you can see is segmentation and colour and the detail.
Do you think then that these kind of incredible images help connect people with the scientific research that goes on behind the scenes?
Definitely, definitely. To match the two, to have such stunning images come through more and more each year, then infuses people to want to actually study, to do the job that I do, to be passionate and care about the living organisms in the deep, dark ocean. Because, you know, it's a whole new world still to examine. And it's really important often, some of these things, as I said before, are really microscopical, but often, you know, the food source for a lot of larger animals within the food chain. So, you know, we have to sort of care about these organisms.
Thank you so much, Miranda. It's so important, of course, that we are seeing an insight into these animals' lives and species which we wouldn't ordinarily get to see. So fantastic work. Thank you to all those amazing photographers. Chris, what about that?
I know. Extraordinary. But I've got to crack on, Megs, because I'm getting a word in my ear that I've been waffling too much about wasps, gharials, and particularly, the tongue louse. So let's move on to our next category, which is animals in their environment. Over the years, we've had some remarkable photographs in this category, and this year, as you're about to see, is going to be no exception at all. Let's look at the awarded images here. We've got some shrimps in the brain coral. Just a little bit of a technical hitch. Just give us a minute. OK, next up, we've got Italian wolves. Look at this, an image from a fairy tale as they move through the mountains. A Siberian tiger in the wild, embracing a beautiful old Manchurian fir. Ibex, make an ideal jigsaw, this one, wouldn't it? Look at it. Spot the number of ibex. I've counted 6 there, actually, although you'll have to look carefully to find the 6th one. Ditto these ptarmigan on top of this plateau. What an astonishing vista to set off these remarkable birds. And last, this one, an ocelot moving through Costa Rica. And the photographer claimed when he saw this tree, he just knew that that would be a wildlife highway, the perfect place to set up a trap camera. And it certainly worked with this beautiful picture of an ocelot. Now, they were good. They were very, very good, weren't they? But which one did the judges think was best? They've gone for the embrace. Sergei Gershkov from Russia took this astonishing photograph of a Siberian tiger in the wild. He'd been working in the Land of the Leopard National Park, but of course these animals have huge territories, range over hundreds, if not thousands of square kilometres. He noted that there was a tiger scratching and rubbing on this tree, so he set up a trap camera. Do you know how long he waited to get this photograph? 10 months. 10 months later, he went to that camera and saw this. Look at the texture. It's almost like a tapestry. The detail is exquisite. The look on the tiger's face. Whew. An amazing photograph. Let's hear from Sergei in Russia.
Добрый вечер. Я Сергей Горшков. Люди просто не представляют, насколько тяжело побеждать в этом конкурсе. И я безумно рад, что мой тигр победил номинацию 56-го конкурса Wildlife Photography of the Year. Не буду врать. Я ждал встречи в Лондоне, но, к сожалению, в этом году коронавирус изменил наши планы, и мы впервые будем общаться онлайн. Я поздравляю всех фотографов. Благодарю организаторов конкурса и жюри за огромную работу, которую они проделали в это непростое время.
I'm going to be very honest with you here. My Russian isn't up to scratch, and the subtitles were too far away for me to read. But all I can say is, Sergei, that was an amazing photograph. Moving on, though, to our next category, and it's urban wildlife. Now, I'm going to be equally honest with you when I tell you that looking back at the history of this competition, some years we get amazing entries in this category, and some years we really struggle. One thing I'm sure of, after the lockdown all around the world this year, with all of those photographers working closer to home, I bet next year we're going to have a bonanza. Not that this year is going to let you down, because I think there's some pretty special images here too. A lounging leopard on an old school wall. And another leopard here. We like to think that leopards are doing well because they cope with urban situations, but overall the species is declining. And what about this one? A large-billed crow's nest made of wire. Not a good sign, I have to say. And this one, a flycatcher that's made its nest on the edge of this beautiful cabin. Common brush-tailed possums peeping, with somewhat comedic value, I have to say here. Yes, the photographer climbed on top of a structure at a campsite to get this one. This is the female, and here's the youngster here. Within a few minutes, they popped out, up to no good, I can probably imagine. But which one was the winner of this year's urban wildlife category? The judges have decided that it's watching you, watching them. Alex Badayev from Russia, who took this picture of the Cordilleran flycatchers. Now, this is a species that's declining in Western America, simply because climate change is exacting its impacts on that landscape, and its riverine habitat tends to be disappearing. But what he's done here is found a nest that isn't in its typical site. They like to nest on cliff sides, on ravines, but this one's made a nest on the building. But what's neat is, look, here he is. Here's Alex down in the corner here, looking at the flycatchers on the screen, and I think, probably, that this is the first selfie that's ever won a picture in this competition. But it's a cracking image. So let's hear from Alex over there in the United States.
Well, to say that I'm very grateful to receive this award is a huge, huge understatement. So thank you very much to all the jury. Thank you to all these amazing people who organize and run this competition over the years. And thank you to people who make this virtual ceremony possible this year. I'm very proud to be part of it. I'm very happy to be part of it. And I'm beyond thrilled to receive this award. And I have to say that most of what I try to accomplish in my photography, I learned from this competition over the years. And for this, I'm also very, very grateful. So thank you very much.
The relationship between humans and the natural world has never been more under the spotlight than it is now. There's not a person across this planet that isn't aware of the impacts of climate change, who hasn't recently been told that since 1970, we've lost up to 68% of the world's wildlife. Our planet is in crisis, and it's down to us. And that's why we call this the Anthropocene, the age of man and woman and young people too, who are exacting that negative impact. But we are concerned, and we are awake to these issues, and we have so many solutions. And that's exactly the feeling here in the museum, because behind the scenes, there are people working here not only to increase our awareness, but also solve some of those problems and put things right so the Anthropocene has a happy ending.
We are living in the age of humans. Never before has the relationship between people and planet been so poignant, so important. Humanity is destroying its own life support system as the natural world faces unprecedented declines. And the link between these issues and photography has never been stronger. Photography allows nature's problems to be documented, discussed, and crucially acted upon. It's hard for people to care about what they can't see, but photographers from across the world are highlighting these issues within our ecosystems. The Natural History Museum has over 300 scientists working to document and study changes to our planet.
As a scientist, I'm fascinated by the vast biodiversity that our ecosystems hold. The often overlooked world of shrimp is hard to access, but recent innovations and technology are giving us a glimpse. Time-lapse cameras with windscreen wipers have been developed to remove algal growth, giving us long-term observations of our coral reefs. Like some other wildcats, ocelots are solitary and nocturnal. In recent times, scientists have been using camera traps to study the movement and numbers of these animals in the environment. The information provided helps support the protection of these species and maintenance. These animals are under increasing pressure from threats of human activities such as hunting and farming.
At Orsted, we believe that climate change is the biggest threat to the planet and all its inhabitants. But there is hope. A green transformation of our energy system is possible. With the advances that have been made in the scalability of offshore wind and reductions in cost, a world that runs entirely on green energy is achievable if we work together to achieve it.
This year's Wildlife Photographer of the Year exhibition features 4 panels highlighting people and our impact on the planet. This marks the beginning of a series of Anthropocene projects and events that the museum will be embarking upon over the coming years. Our species has caused huge changes on our planet, including global warming, ocean acidification and habitat destruction. Earth's ecology is in a critical state, but we have the tools to understand what's happening and what needs to be done. Together, we can work to create a sustainable future.
Duncan, tell us why Wildlife Photographer of the Year is such an important sponsorship for Orsted.
Orsted shares with the Natural History Museum that vision of a future where people and planet thrive. We think climate change is the biggest barrier to that happening. This planet we call home, it's shown so skillfully in this exhibition, but it's all at risk if we as society don't work together to reduce global emissions.
And do you feel society is currently doing enough?
Well, we have made huge strides with renewable power and offshore wind, and that now can provide at the level to tackle climate change, but only if we really work with purpose and ambition. At Orsted, we've made that transition from being a fossil-fueled energy company to being one based on renewables. Our vision is a world that runs entirely on green energy, and we would like our story to inspire countries around the world to make that green transition.
Very poignantly put. 2 very important reasons why we should support institutions like the Natural History Museum, not just here in the UK, but all around the world, for those staff that are working so hard to solve those problems. And also the people that are trying to change the technologies which are having a negative impact and making them have a positive impact on our environment. Worth supporting those sponsors as well. OK, we're moving closer to the grand title announcement, but we've got a few more categories to go. And the next one up is Earth's environment. Now, these typically are photographs which make you think, do you know what? I wish I'd been there. I'd wished I'd been standing where that photographer was standing with my camera and my lens. Let's have a look at the award winners this year. Here we are, Etna, with a ribbon of larvae snaking across all of that volcanic substrate. And here, a lake in Colorado, cracked foreground, beautiful autumnal vista in the background. Is this Narnia or is it beyond the wall? It's neither. It's a blue pool in the Dolomites. And lastly, look at this, another fairy tale image. This is a forest in Germany, caught in the early morning ray of the sun with that fog drifting over. All of those landscapes are places where you'd love to be for very different reasons. Imagine standing there with the lava. That would be exhilarating. Imagine standing in that fog. You could smell almost the humus, the wet smell of the forest, hear the call of the wolf echoing between those trees. But which photo is this year's winner? The judges decided that Etna's River of Fire by Luciano Gaudenzio from Italy is the winner. Now, Lucenzio was in a completely different place when he heard about this eruption. He then travelled immediately to Etna, and he struggled up over all of this volcanic substrate. Not an easy climb, broken pieces of pumice. And of course, when he reached here, he was standing in front of a wall of heat where he could go no further. But he was patient. He waited for the sun to set for this blue hour and then tried a slow exposure, which is why you've got the movement here in this lava. And what's interesting is if you look beyond here, you can see the habitable part of this environment, because this is on the edge of that plate, the African and Eurasian plate, along with Vesuvius and Stromboli. This is a volcanically active part of the world, and in fact, Etna has been erupting in some shape or form for the last 30 years. It's a fantastic photograph. I've never been up to a volcano like this, but this makes me want to try. So let's hear from Luciano over there in Italy.
Hi everybody, thank you. Thank you very much for this important award. It's a great pity not to be there celebrating it live with all your staff and other photographers. Thanks to my family, who have always supported me in my job, and the team of L'Altro Versante, a long-term project to rediscover Italian mountains, for which this image was taken. Finally, a special thanks to nature that allowed me to witness an unexpected event that pushes me even more to orient my work to its protection and respect. Thanks again.
Congratulations, Luciano. It was a great photograph, and I think when it comes to choosing the most picturesque background to do your acceptance speech, you take the crown there as well. That was a beautiful backdrop. Let's move on to our next category, and I've got to say, I'm very pleased that we've got this category, and it always does really well in the competition. It's plants and fungi. Too many people with an interest in the natural world overlook the green and the slimy stuff, and yet they're very obviously fundamentally important to all of our ecosystems. Let's look at this year's award winners in plants and fungi. An amazing forest here, Araucaria forest in Chile. We know these trees as monkey puzzle trees here in the UK, and they've become native in many other parts of the world. What about this one? Arnica daisies high in the mountains of Colombia, right up in the Andes there. Lily of the valley, a much more humble species. This photographed in Russia, beautiful soft blue light. And this one, marsh marigolds, ranunculus, in Finland with a beautiful slow exposure bokeh behind them there. They were all stunning, weren't they? Absolutely stunning photographs. The judges have decided, however, that the winner this year in plants and fungi is Out of the Blue by Gabrielle Eisenband from Colombia. This, on the right-hand side of the screen here, is the highest peak in the eastern Colombian Andes, and it was up to this valley that Gabrielle hiked. These are endemic daisies here, and you can see if you look carefully here, they look white and woolly, and that's because they're covered in hairs to keep them warm, and they have a form of antifreeze in the body of the plant to stop them from freezing. But he got up there, he did a long exposure, thankfully it was perfectly still, and it's given an ethereal feel to all of these clouds here, with a beautiful composition with these daisies in the foreground. And as I said at the outset, this is another one of those photographs where you just wish you were standing, looking at the marvel of this landscape and the nature that's prospering in it. Fantastic stuff. Let's hear from Gabrielle in Colombia.
I want to thank the Natural History Museum and the judges of the contest of the Wildlife Photographer of the Year for this huge honor, which I received deeply humbled and very happily. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, thanks Gabrielle. Fancy that, Megs? Hike up the Andes? Need to get down the gym first. Well, I would, personally.
Yeah, I think I'd probably have to join you on that, to be honest. But there's lots of fantastic comments coming in from everybody watching this stream at the moment. This is a comment from Amelia saying, I love learning about nature through the eyes of these photographers, and I have to 100% agree, especially with images like this. You know, that beautiful warm orange juxtaposed with that beautiful cool blue and the purples that draws your eye up to the peak at the top. It's a stunning image. And now I'm joined by Sandy, who's a botanist here at the Natural History Museum, to tell me a little bit about everything that goes on. Have you even seen this species in the wild?
That's the most amazing image, because that brings back all these memories to me of being in the Andes and seeing those plants, which are called, in Spanish, they're called frailejones, which means little friars, because they're very furry and they're like the capes that the early monks wore in the Andes. And just that river of gold, it's absolutely beautiful. And one of the things about the plants part of this competition is we often see plants as the background to our lives, but this shows us actually that they can be stars in their own right, and that plants are actually wildlife too.
I 100% agree. I actually think photographing plants is actually one of the hardest things you can do because there's so many different options and to do something new as well. And of course, those photos are great in showcasing how beautiful they are.
Well, and they're beautiful. And Georgia O'Keeffe, the famous painter, American painter, once said, if you hold a flower in your hand and look at it closely for a moment, you have the whole world in your hand. And that's true. You know, that looking at something really closely and seeing the moment, as you said about that picture, it's just how that pulls your eye towards them. I mean, that picture is amazing because it's got plants and it's got mountains, so what's not to like?
What a stunning quote, and I think that's very apt. I mean, what do you think about that, Chris? What a beautiful quote.
It is, and I've always been a fan of Georgia O'Keeffe. I like her paintings very much. Sadly, they've gone beyond my budget now, I have to say. I'd be just up for a print if I was very lucky. Let's move on to our next category. It's the most popular category in the competition every single year, with 8,000 entries this year, posing real problems for the judges, I'm sure. It's animal portraits. Brace yourself, there's some crackers here, there really are. First up, we've got this muddy hippo, just the eye peeping out of the Masai Mara Rudd as it tries to find some dampness there. What about this, South Africa? The last thing that a wildebeest or zebra sees? Well, probably not. It probably doesn't see it at all, the lion hiding behind the grass. A red fox, blown in the wind of Yellowstone, peeling back its pelage there in the freezing cold conditions. And here a proboscis monkey, a moment of bliss, its eye closed, its nose poised. A blackbird in Hungary alongside a garden pool. A great idea. Underexpose the blackbird, just leave the eye and the beak. A tyra, an extraordinary mustelid. This one was photographed in Costa Rica at the top of a tree. They're normally predatory animals, but apparently it was eating fruit. Siberian tiger, again, in the wild, a camera trap picture like a painting. Absolutely exquisite. And lastly, this great grey owl. Again, look at the position, the owl, the clenched fist, the moon. Beautiful wash of grey and blue. Some stunning portraits, absolutely stunning. Which one won? Well, the judges, I'm sure, really struggled with this category, but they decided that the winner this year in animal portraits was The Pose by Mogens Troller from Denmark. Yes, it's this, the young proboscis monkey, a male. Two things are striking in the photo, of course, when you look at the portrait of this. Firstly, the blue eyelid, very ABBA, early 70s that. Agnetha, he's pinched her eyeshadow. But look at his nose, still small at the moment. As they mature, the nose gets bigger and bigger. And they use that to demonstrate their status and their mood, although sometimes it gets so large that when they're eating, they have to push it out of the way in order to eat. It's an amazing photograph of, I have to say, an endangered species, sadly. They are quite passive, these primates, and they live near rivers, which makes them accessible. They are hunted for their meat and also for traditional medicine. Let's hope that this portrait draws attention to their plight. So let's listen to Mogen over there in Denmark.
Thank you very much for this award. The first thing that most people think about when they see the proboscis monkey is that humongous nose, and it tends to be a species that we laugh at. But there is so much more to the animal than meets the eye. It's one of the world's most socially advanced and expressive monkeys, and it has so much personality. And I hope that my portrait of the meditating bachelor showing an individual with feelings and sensitivity can make people appreciate more this endangered fellow primates.
Mogen, I'm sure it will. It's an exquisite portrait of a remarkable animal. I have been fortunate enough to see them. You only find them in Borneo. They only occur in one place. And as we know, in recent times, Borneo has lost so much of its native forest. Deforestation is something that we're going to be coming on to, and we're going to be coming on to it now. Because we're moving on to the Photojournalist Award. Now, over the course of the competition, and I mentioned at the outset, I've been visiting this hallowed hall since the mid-80s, entering the competition, judging it, and having the privilege to present it. Well, one thing that we've seen change is a growing interest in photojournalism. Photos that tell us stories that need to be heard. Sometimes the photographs are difficult to look at, but can I just say, keep your eyes open on two accounts. One, these photographers had the harrowing job of going to these places and taking some pretty challenging pictures. You owe it to them for their endeavours. And secondly, if you don't look, then you'll never feel that passion, that need to fix the problem. So brace yourselves, because some of these are a tough look. Here are the awarded images this year. The first Asian elephants being exploited on a beach, and this is a family of English people as well. They probably didn't know better. And here, one of those animal markets, this one in Indonesia, very much in the news, of course, because they're thought to be the origin of COVID-19. South Africa, these are the seas where all of these albatross have died. Although, incidentally, this is a good news picture because there are less of them dying now than there were just a few years ago. Well, this is gruesome. Short-finned pilot whale off of Madeira, and it's had its tail all but sliced off by a boat propeller. Polar bear in a Russian circus with a muzzle behind the fencing. And look at this, how to ruin the planet. Scrape off its skin, expose its oily underbelly and exploit it. And then this is symbolic surely of man just not knowing when is enough. This elephant was caught in a snare in the jungle. The digger is there trying to rescue the animal. They managed to lift it up, but if you look here, you can see that the snare is sliced through, and unfortunately, shortly after this, the animal died through blood poisoning. Here again in Sumatra, like the last photo, but here, some of these Sumatran tiger trophies and the elephant tusks are being burned. We're trying to devalue the trade in wildlife body parts. Back to the Russian circuses, belugas that should be free in the Arctic, remarkable cetaceans, but here they are in an inflatable pool inside a tent. Ghastly. And then lastly, a very, very powerful image, because this is our garden on fire. This is part of Brazil. This is the Amazon burning. This is the lungs of the world being scorched. I said they were tough, but credit to the photographers for getting out there and getting stuck in and getting those images to make us think and to make us want to make changes. We had to pick a winner. Show Business by Kirsten Luce from the United States was the winner. It's this image of the polar bear in a circus. They've been taken from the wild, they've been in captivity for 18 years. These animals live for 40 years, or they can do. When it's not here performing, it's in what we call a beast wagon, a tiny, cramped, unhygienic area. This is a tough place to take photographs, but Kirsten's done a remarkable job. Let's hear from Kirsten in the United States.
It's a huge honor to have my work recognized in this year's contest. I hope that it encourages a dialogue about what responsible wildlife tourism could and should look like, and also shed light on the suffering that goes on behind the scenes when animals are forced to perform for humans. I want to thank my reporting partner, Natasha Daly, as well as Kathy Moran, my picture editor at National Geographic, who supported and encouraged us as we traveled to 6 different countries. So cheers to all of you from Brooklyn, and thank you again.
Thank you, Kirsten, and I for one salute you for your endeavours here. That animal, the polar bear, remember, has become a symbol of our melting world. We don't really want to see them in circuses in 2020, anywhere on planet Earth. Can I ask you at home to do anything you can to put an end to this insidious practice? These photographs are about communication. They can be controversial, but then the meaning of controversy is to promote conversation. And without creative conversation, we're not going to make creative changes. We need to change our minds if we're going to change the world. And 2 alumni of Wildlife Photographer of the Year have been trying to do just that. Justin and Emily have been out there with their cameras trying to make a difference.
There are certain images and certain scenes that are universal, that speak to everybody. These are images that don't require a caption, they don't even require translation into different languages because we all understand the importance of what we're seeing. Because of the popularity of my seahorse photo and the wide range and the big net that was cast by Wildlife Photographer of the Year, local NGOs and small community programs rode the wave, rode the progress of this image and used the awareness of plastic pollutions to actually get policies changed and get things done in their local communities.
Plastic pollution is a huge problem globally, but it's also an issue locally on our back doorsteps. UK's rivers are full of plastic, and here at the Natural History Museum we're monitoring local plastic pollution. We recover plastic from the River Thames, including this 30-year-old crisp packet. It goes to show how big an impact one piece of litter can have and how long it can stay in the environment. Both through science and media, we're raising awareness of this issue. But we want to highlight that every little change you make will have a really big impact.
In 2015 and 2018, my images of a Sumatran sun bear and an Indian elephant were included in the photojournalism category. Thanks to Wildlife Photographer of the Year, these images reached an international audience, encouraging the general public to act and to feel empathy for these animals. Wildlife Photographer of the Year isn't simply an award. It's an opportunity for artists and photographers to amplify stories that matter to them. I think it's wonderful that Wildlife Photographer of the Year continue to champion photojournalists covering the relationship between humans and wildlife.
Global biodiversity is in rapid decline, with millions of species facing extinction in the near future. This comes about through land use, through climate change, and through our own carelessness and selfishness, and sometimes through our simple unawareness of what's going on in the natural world. Wildlife Photographer of the Year captures moments in the life of our planet, whether through images of geological change that have occurred over millions of years, or species that have evolved over millions of years, or through a millisecond of an encounter or a behaviour witnessed by an expert photographer. Here at the Natural History Museum, we're keen to engage with you towards a future where we develop solutions from nature as well as develop solutions for nature. We hope we've inspired you this evening to take action on behalf of nature and action to protect it.
I like taking pictures of birds wherever I find them, even when the habitat looks like what's behind me, because you need to show people that wildlife is everywhere, even on their doorstep.
Becoming a photographer has simply allowed me to express my curiosity. My camera is my excuse to explore, connect, listen and learn. You could say photography is my way of adding something to the conversation.
Cameras for me tell stories. So it's a tool, it's a mechanism for me to be able to say, here's what's happening on the ground, and ask people to care.
My camera has given a voice to wildlife. I think right now photography is more important than ever. If it wasn't for photographs, the world's conscience would wither.
The world's conscience would wither. I don't think it will wither, because we have to remember that photographs can change hearts and minds. And we're about to see more of that now in our next category, which is the Photojournalist Story Award. Now, this is an exceptional set of photographs. This is the tiger next door, taken by a long-term friend of the competition, Steve Winter, who photographed this for National Geographic. Steve has been a winner in this competition many times, a great photographer. But here he spent 2 years with the 5,000 tigers which are in captivity in North America, some of them being kept in appalling conditions, bred for petting, sometimes euthanized because they're simply not fit for petting any longer. And some of the characters you see here you would have recognised, as they've subsequently gained infamy in Netflix Tiger King series on TV. Now, what we want, of course, is a change in legislation to prevent these sorts of practices taking place. And Steve's work, published in that magazine, seen all over the world, is promoting a change in that legislation. It's not there yet, but I'm told that it's poised to be on the statute books, and things could be better for tigers in America. Top work, Steve. Highly commended. Topper work to our winner this year, which is this category. It is Entertaining Abuse by Paul Hilton. these are a tough look. Bears juggling fire, again in a circus. Here a macaque chained up in a pet shop with pure sorrow written all over its face. An orangutan, a young animal, taken from its mother in the wilds of those jungles in those far eastern places, sold into the pet trade. And what Paul wants to do is draw attention to the fact that this trade in endangered animals, alive and dead, is worth millions, billions of dollars, pounds, yen every year. Run underground and illegally, it's something that we really need to get on top of. For the plight of animals like this bear, chained by its nose, this isn't a medieval scene. This is a scene from 2020, and how damning and shocking is that? We have a lot of work to do, and we need to get on with that work, and we're inspired to do so by Paul's photographs. Now, he couldn't provide us with a video, but he has sent a quote, and I'd like to read it to you now. Thank you for this award, but more importantly, thank you for the platform to show these images to the world, enabling people from all corners of the earth to witness these atrocities that we put animals through on a daily basis. COVID-19 has shown us that disrespecting the natural world is only a reflection on us. What we do to nature, we do to ourselves. Surely, now is the time to respect all the life, and when all species flourish, so do we. Not only remarkable photographs, but very poignant words from Paul Hilton indeed. Now, the judges had to choose one of those images to go through for possible contender in the grand title, and they chose this one. This is Backroom Business, and it is that picture of the macaque. Look at all the other cages in the background, the other animals here. The destiny of this animal, I hate to say it, if it's lucky, is death. Relatively rapid, because other than that, it's got a lifetime of abject misery to not look forward to. It's a desperately tragic scene indeed. Let's move on to our next category. It's this category here, which is the Wildlife Photographer Portfolio Award. Now, we've seen a few collections of photographs this year, and as I've already pointed out, these are tough categories to win because you can't enter just one good photograph. You've got to enter a whole range of them. Well, this year's winner has done just that. His name is Ripan Biswas, and this is his collection of photographs of weaver ants and associates. Here's a tiger beetle, taken in the Buxa Tiger Reserve, but he's not photographed the mammals, he's gone for their little ferocious counterparts. Here a weaver ant on top of a plant bug displaying its jaws there, and these are a very aggressive species, difficult to photograph, can't get too close. They're going to spray you with formic acid and give you a nifty nip. Here they're carrying a feather up the tree, and Ripan says he doesn't know exactly why they're doing that. It might be trying to get the protein from it. This one's interesting. Here's an ant on the left-hand side. The animal on the right-hand side looks like another ant, but look more closely at the position of the eyes. It's not an ant at all. It's a spider mimic predating the weaver ant. Here, weavers have ambushed a queenless ant in the open. And I have to say, a few minutes later, it was heading to their nest as supper. And here, the last weaver ant carrying a small stone, and another mystery. We don't know why they carry these stones all the way to their nest. It's not food. We're not entirely sure why that is at all. Okay. The judges, once again, because it's a collection of photographs, had to choose one to go through to the final, and the one they chose was this one, The Last Bite. See what's happened here? The tiger beetle, which is frequently nailing the ants as they run across beneath it, has reached around and severed the body of this ant. Look closely, the head and thorax are here, there's no abdomen, and yet the little ant is hanging on defiantly to the tiger beetle's leg, whilst it's here waiting for another meal. I love those tiger beetles. I really love them. They're so ferocious. We get them here in the UK out on the heaths. Every summer they're a joy to watch. Let's hear from Ripan now over in India about how pleased he is to have won this award.
I have spent more than 10 years to photograph the life of weaver ants. They are charming. Ants play an important role towards biodiversity and nature. Still, very little is known about them. Beside their importance, their indomitable spirit, cooperative and hardworking nature teach us a lot. Thank you, Natural History Museum and all the judges for giving me the opportunity to speak for them. Thank you all.
Fantastic stuff, Weepan, and congratulations. Now, tiger beetle, tiger beetle. What do you think, Megs? It's a difficult choice, isn't it?
It is a really difficult choice, but I love the drama in these small animals. You take a closer look and you see actually just how impressive and ferocious their lives are. It's incredible. And we've had lots of comments coming in saying, seeing all these incredible images has made me want to get out there and do some wildlife photography for myself. And that's brilliant. That's what it's all about. Get out and give it a go. Why not? And there is a question that's come in about the judging process. And it just so happens that I'm joined now by the chair of judging, Ros Kidman-Cox. Tell me a little bit, Ros, how do you do it?
Well, there's no magic formula to finding your winner, but we have a jury which represents different nationalities, different backgrounds, different emotional responses, which I think comes sometimes from your culture. So it's a debate when it comes down to the last ones, and sometimes it is a compromise. You can't have the one that you dearly love, but then you can have one of the judges, and Chris is adept at doing this, talking up what's wonderful about a particular picture. So I'd say, it's very hard having one winner in a category, and I find that sometimes upsetting because there's so many other lovely pictures, but that's the name of the game. And the 100, I think, in this exhibition they're all awarded.
They're all absolutely amazing images, and I would love to be a fly on the wall in that room as you're making that decision. But let's head back down to Chris to figure out what's happening next.
Megs, I'll tell you what's happening next. We've got to that point in the evening when we are going to crown Wildlife Photographer of the Year 2020. We've been through all of our categories now, and you've seen the winners of each of those categories. So before we announce the overall winner, the grand title winner this year, let's refresh our memories for this astonishing collection of photographs. First up, we've got this one, Eleanor's Gift by Alberto Fantoni from Italy. A Tale of Two Wasps from France, Frank Deschendol. When Mother Says Run, Shangye Li from China. Great Crested Sunrise, Jose Ruiz Jimenez from Spain. Life in the Balance, Jaime Culebras, again from Spain. The Golden Moment, Songda Kai from China. From Russia, Sergei Gershkov, The Embrace. Watching You, Watching Me, Alex Badyaev from the United States. Etna's River of Fire, Luciano Gaudenzio from Italy. Out of the Blue, Gabrielle Eisenbrand from Colombia. The Pose, Mogen Troller from Denmark. Show Business, Kirsten Luce from the United States. Backroom Business, Paul Hilton from Australia. And The Last Bite, Weepan Biswas from India. Only one of these photographs can now win Wildlife Photographer of the Year 2020, perhaps the most prestigious prize in the wildlife photographic world. And I'm very pleased and honoured to say that to announce the winner this year, we have Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cambridge.
It is so wonderful to be back at the reopened Natural History Museum, where we can all enjoy its treasures once again. I am delighted to be announcing the grand title winner of the 56th Wildlife Photographer of the Year competition. As we've seen this evening, this competition attracts the very best in wildlife photography. The skill and creativity of this year's images provide a moving and fascinating insight into the beauty and vulnerability of life on our planet. So it's with great pleasure that I can announce this year's Wildlife Photographer of the Year is Sergei Gershkov for his image, The Embrace. Many congratulations to you, Sergei, and thank you to all of those who entered for showing us the magic of the natural world. and for reminding us that caring for our environment and its precious biodiversity has never been more important.
Fantastic, and congratulations, Sergei. An amazing win for that beautiful photograph. I'm not entirely sure you can understand all of my language, but if I applaud, then I'm sure you'll get what I'm saying. If you've anything to say, we'll translate it and beam it to the world.
I will speak a little bit English, and big surprise for me. It's really warrant, and it is great to be first. But I think each of you could have been in my place. But I wish each of you great news picture for future, and really I am happy, and a big surprise for me. Thank you very much.
Sergei, congratulations. You've been crowned Wildlife Photographer of the Year 2020 for your remarkable picture of that Siberian tiger. I know it's the middle of the night for Russia, so it's a bit too late for too much vodka. You'll have to leave that until tomorrow night. But what I can tell you is that this magnificent award will be winging its way to you as quickly as possible. And once again, congratulations on winning this year. It was an exceptional image, no doubt about that at all.
Thank you.
Megs.
I know. Can you believe that?
I know.
The excitement to see that image, that just in the little screen, and to get home.
I know. 10 months that camera was there, in the cold. He went out there, checked that screen, like you say, and found that. And I love about it is the detail in here. It's like an exquisite painting, an Orientalist painting, like a tapestry. And the bird, the sort of, the tiger, the ecstasy of the animal rubbing itself on the tree.
You can almost feel it, can't you, on your face a little bit? I'd love to feel that. I'd be amazed.
Oh, I know.
What an incredible
Such a
thing.
rare animal, so hard to see, so hard to photograph, such a worthy winner this year.
Thank you so much to everybody who's joined us tonight. It's been an incredible evening full of creativity, imagination, showcasing some of the world's finest biodiversity and hopefully motivating and inspiring people to take photos and go out and protect it as well. For me, photography, it is not restricted by the boundaries of language. You can see an image and it just gets you, and it's that emotion which then transcends hopefully through generations as well. So big congratulations to all of our photographers.
And big thanks to those photographers as well. You've transported us around the world. You've shown us some remarkable things, some very beautiful things. You've made us want to stand where you've been standing. And also you've stimulated us, I hope, to stand up and be counted for that natural world as well. Thank you also to the judges who had the very difficult job of choosing these winning photographs, to the sponsors as well, of course, and to Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cambridge, for standing up this evening and choosing to sponsor the museum as well. Top work. And of course, we'd still like to see more of your work, and next year's competition opens imminently on October the 19th. Next year, we've got new categories. We've got a wetlands category, we've got an oceans category, and also natural artistry. So whether that's your natural artistry or the artistry of the natural world, well, we'll see, won't we, next year? But do your best to enter those if you've been taking photographs this year.
I'm looking forward to seeing them. But of course, if you'd like to see the photographs from this year's competition, you can head to the exhibition at the Natural History Museum in London, which is open from the 16th of October and closes on the 9th of June 2021. And you can purchase tickets to that online via the website www.nhm.ac.uk.
Tonight, we've seen a celebration of wildlife. We've seen a celebration of our world. What a wonderful world it is. But it's the only world that we've got. Floating in space, that tiny pale blue dot. So precious, so beautiful. Do we really want to be on the brink of destroying that world? I don't think so. I think it's time for us to stand up, raise our voices, effect change, and make sure that we have, not just for us, but for every other species, a secure, sustainable, and harmonious future on planet Earth. Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.